So, what are the connections that you found between Epstein and Israel?
Well, so in the case of people like Ratner and people like Epstein, they're accused of major sex crimes, but they also have major connections to organized crime and or intelligence. The early history of Israel, for example, some of these organized crime linked oligarchs, the Bronfman family, for example, instrumental in arming the Haganah, the precursor to the IDF. A lot of these mob figures collaborated with Mossad, including Lansky himself, but they have a lot of ties to Israeli intelligence and also to US intelligence. You sort of end up finding more often than not that in a lot of the CIA's most controversial activities, they're collaborating with Israeli intelligence. And arguably that's because they have connections that go even beyond those agencies, because a lot of times when people talk about intelligence related crimes or covert operations, people forget that intelligence agencies aren't necessarily the power there. They work for somebody else. The CIA and its precursor, the OSS, were dominated by Wall Street bankers, and those bankers teamed up with organized crime. It was a mutually beneficial relationship, and the CIA ended up taking over a lot of rackets from the mob, like drug trafficking, because, the mob then, by teaming up with the CIA, gets state protection. A lot of people that were used in assassination efforts backed by the CIA hired mobsters from the US to do that. Most of the CIA's regime change coups were done on behalf of US multinational corporations and because of, oligarch moneyed interests. As far as, since you asked about Epstein and the Israeli state, he's really alleged to have been working more closely with Israeli military intelligence, not necessarily Mossad.